Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Reverend Gregory Sutton, pastor of Jackson Memorial for 55 years, and I know I don't look 55. But by the grace of God, I'm still here. Amen. And we're still here. We're thankful to God for all that he has done and for all that he's getting ready to do. But I welcome you to this town hall meeting. Congresswoman Nikema, we welcome you. We thank God for you. Councilwoman Boon, God bless you. We thank God for you, my goddaughter. Let me say to you today, this is the day that the Lord has made. Yes. And we are to rejoice and be glad in it. Amen. And I don't know about you, but I'm thankful that last night was not my last night. Amen. But by the grace of God, I'm here today. To the panel, we appreciate you for your punctuality, and we need to get started, and the only way that we're going to get started first, and I believe that we should bow our heads, praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we gather here this evening with hearts full of hope and a desire to work together for the betterment of our community and for our country. We thank you for the opportunity to come together to share ideas and to address the important issues facing our nation. We ask, oh God, for your guidance and wisdom to be upon our city leaders as they make decisions that will impact each of us. Grant them clarity of mind, a spirit of collaboration, and the courage to act in the best interests of our community and our nation. Help us as citizens to engage in respectful dialogue, to listen to one another with open minds and hearts, and to work together to find common ground. We pray for unity, understanding, and a spirit of cooperation as we move forward. We thank you, O God. We grant your blessings. Please, Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for what you have done, and we thank you for what you're getting ready to do in the mighty and matchless name of Jesus. And all the people of God said, Amen.
Good evening. Good evening. And now we will have a presentation of our colors by the Atlanta Police Department's Honor Guard. You may be seated. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Trey Riddle. I am the District Chief of Staff to Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who I have the honor and privilege for not only working for, but to introduce to you tonight and to present to others. Congresswoman Nikema Williams has been a fierce advocate for social justice for women and families throughout her political and professional career. Congresswoman Williams proudly serves as the representative of Georgia's fighting 5th Congressional District. She is in her 3rd term, and she is uplifting the legacy of her friend and mentor and predecessor, the late Congressman John Lewis. Congresswoman Williams always centers the voices of those who are most marginalized. She brings this concern to Congress, having seen and experienced firsthand how women and people of color continue to fight for racial and social justice in our country. In fact, phrase she often utters, she is a co-conspirator for justice, and she is always, without reservation, without hesitation, engaging in a little good trouble. A dedicated member of the exclusive House Financial Services Committee, she champions affordable housing, works to close the racial wealth gap, and fights a financial system that prioritizes working families over corporate profits. In addition, as whip of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Congresswoman Williams leads the charge for reproductive freedom, standing firm in the belief people, and not politicians, should have the final say in a very personal healthcare decision. As a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Progressive Caucus, the New Democratic Coalition, Congresswoman Williams brings a bold, inclusive vision to her work. Whether advocating for economic justice, expanding voting rights, or addressing systemic inequalities, she is unwavering in her commitment to deliver on the promise of America for everyone, no matter what their zip code is. Congresswoman Williams is a proud graduate of the Talladega College, a historically Black college in Alabama. She is also a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I had to get that in. Where she pledged at the Chi chapter at Talladega College. Above all, and this is the most impressive and important aspect of her being, in my personal opinion, she is the proud wife to her husband, Leslie Smalls, and the mother of the absolutely precocious, wonderful, smart, intelligent, just turned 10 years old a couple of weeks back, my main guy, and 5K running mate Carter Smalls. Her family keeps her grounded and fuels her passion to build a future where all children have the opportunity to thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Congresswoman Nikema Williams.
Well, hello, everybody. Y'all can do better than that. I know it's late in the evening. You probably want to get home to dinner, but we are here in community because this is what it's all about, y'all. Hello. Hello. I am Congresswoman Nikema Williams, and I proudly represent all of you in Georgia's fighting 5th Congressional District. I want to start by thanking Pastor Sutton for opening up your church home to us, to the people. Because I know that you are all about the people, Pastor Sutton. I've been here when you have had health fairs to make sure that people got the care and the screenings that they needed and deserved. I've been here to pass out food when you were making sure that the people were fed. And now we are back because we got to have a real family conversation, y'all. It's a lot going on. And I'm here to bring the information back to the people. I also want to thank my big sister in service, Councilwoman Boon, who has been doing this work for I don't know how long, but if you look at her, you wouldn't be able to tell it. So thank you for joining me in this venture to bring the information back to the people, because I know the people are always at the center of everything that you do. Y'all, before we begin tonight, I want to make sure that we take a moment of silence for the DeKalb officer, David Rose. Officer Rose, his life was taken, y'all, by an extremist in a gross act of violence last week. And we need to honor him. We know from the writings found in the shooter's home that this was a deliberate attack on the public servants at the CDC due to the dangerous anti-vaccine rhetoric, because we're gonna keep it real tonight and name things for what they are. The campaign against the COVID vaccine was dangerous on its own, recklessly putting public health at risk. And last week was just an example of how far and how dangerous some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle's rhetoric has become. So please join me in a moment of silence to honor Officer Rose and those that continue to put their lives on the line to keep us safe. Thank you. Just this past April on 404 Day, no less, I spoke on that same corner, right across from the CDC, right in that CVS parking lot. Right there, y'all. Some of you might have been out there with me because we brought workers with us so that their voice could be heard, union leaders so that their voice could be heard. So when I saw the images of where the shooting was taking place and that CVS, that's this very CVS I went in because I collect black Santas and black nutcrackers, and after Christmas, I'm always looking for my clearance stuff, Pastor Sutton. And my husband, I get on his last nerve, but we went around to every CVS that I could find because those black nutcrackers were marked down on clearance, and I need them for this coming Christmas. And that's all that I could think about, the families who might have been in there grabbing a snack after school because it was at the end of the day. Those families who were picking up those babies from the daycare right there at the CDC, caught up in the crossfires. My former pastor who married Leslie and I, Pastor Byron Thomas, is now the senior pastor at Glen Memorial, which is right there in that community. And I called Pastor Thomas and I was like, I haven't seen proof of life. What is going on? Because everybody was scrambling to see if their loved ones were safe. And unfortunately, Officer Rose's loved ones didn't get the same message that I got from Pastor Thomas. And so I'm grateful for his service. I'm grateful for his family. We need to continue to lift them up in prayer. To our active and inactive CDC employees, thank you for the work that you do. And I am so deeply sorry for not just the fear that you've experienced in the aftermath of the shooting, but what you've been through in the past few months, just trying to bring public health, keeping our communities safe. We know coming out of the global pandemic that we are all in this together, y'all. And it's up to all of us. But we had experts doing the work to keep not just Atlanta, not just Georgia or the region, the country, but the world safe, because we are all interconnected. So thank you for everything that you continue to do in the face of adversity. Communities all across Georgia have felt fear recently. We just witnessed another shooting just last week down in Fort Stewart. So when I saw the news, I immediately called my father in Alabama because his wife works on that base. And I didn't know what was going on, but it was important to me to check in with families in the area because just as I was facing that fear once again, so many other families did not get the same good news that I got that night. Y'all, this is unacceptable, and it should not be our normal. This should not be a regular snapshot in the news and then we move on to the next shooting. Carter comes home from school and he tells me about the intruder drills that they're having. Rashawn, this shouldn't be our normal. I know our baby Brooklyn is going to school, and we want to make sure that all of our babies come home safely. But more than that, that they're not living in fear and trying to figure out how many kids can fit in a classroom in an elementary school, because we have leaders in this country who are not committed to keeping them safe. And that's not okay. And y'all, yet another unacceptable regular in our news is the humanitarian crisis happening across the world between Israel and Palestine. Nowhere, I repeat, nowhere in the world Should children be dying of starvation or forced to live in the conditions that the people of Gaza have had to endure? That too is unacceptable. In May, I joined my colleagues because it's not just enough for me to say that it's unacceptable. I have to lead with my actions as a leader in this country. In May, I joined 9 other, not necessarily joined because I led the letter and I brought them along with me, but I wrote a letter with other Congressional Black Caucus colleagues writing to the ambassador of Israel, calling for a briefing on Israel's reported plans for humanitarian aid delivery to Gaza, because this must end. Food must come in, resources must come in, and we must make sure that no civilian is caught up in the crossfire of this dangerous war that is continuing to happen in the Middle East. I am also closely monitoring this ongoing conflict and working with my congressional colleagues Everybody deserves to be heard, and we will have a Q&A. Everybody deserves to be heard. That is why we're having this town hall, y'all. It is the beauty of our democracy, the beauty of this country. Everybody has a right to be heard. Those that agree with me, those that don't agree with me, because that is the beauty of the American democracy. That's what I fight for every day in the United States Congress. I am continuing to monitor the ongoing conflict and working with my colleagues to ensure to the best of our ability that the relief so badly needed is actually getting into the hands of the children and families, the civilians living in Palestine. But y'all, what I know is that we have atrocities happening right here at home in our backyard, and those too cannot go unaddressed. The Trump administration abandoned the American people since January. Because not only is this administration standing by as the people of Gaza face atrocities, but this billionaire bailout bill, whatever they want to call it, but we know what happened with this bill, it will leave millions of Americans with less while giving a handful of billionaire donors a whole lot more. And that too is unacceptable right here in America. Americans are struggling to make ends meet, and they're gonna lose $1,200 each year with cuts to healthcare and food assistance, all while the ultra-rich rake in massive tax breaks and gain even more wealth every single year. We're talking about 651,540 people across Georgia who will lose their health care. Those are real lives, real people, real lives at stake, y'all. We're talking about 154,000 people across our state at risk of losing some or all of their food assistance. You might call it SNAP, you might call it food stamps, but I call it a lifeline that I'm all too familiar with, because growing up in rural Alabama, in the big city of Smith Station, Alabama, I was kind of like that 10th child. My grandma raised 9 children, and then she took me in and she raised me as well. And we got food stamps every month. I know what it was like to need just a little extra help to make ends meet. And I will not stand by while in the richest country of America, in the world, we send children to bed hungry. That is unacceptable. Today, I spent some time down at Clayton State University, a university where over 70% of the students are Pell Grant eligible. I sat there and I listened to 2 students who received Pell Grants. The average age of the student on campus is about 23, 24 years old, because these are people who are also raising their families. These are people who also are working full-time jobs, and Pell Grants make it possible for them to get that education so that they can move on and thrive in life. But what happened with this billionaire bailout budget, while my Republican colleagues are giving tax cuts to billionaires, 913 students right here in Georgia alone will have their Pell Grants cut or eliminated, and that too is unacceptable. Recently, I spoke with a neonatal care physician right here in Atlanta who informed me that in our state, Medicaid pays for 45% of the births and covers 51% of our state's children. That is over half of the children in our state. That's not over half of the Democratic children, Dana. That's not over half of the children who live in Atlanta. That is across the state. Not Black children, not white children, but all children. 51% receive Medicaid coverage in the state of Georgia. But yet, in this billionaire budget, y'all, Medicaid benefits are okay to cut, but not tax cuts for billionaires. And that's unacceptable. The physician spoke to me about how she was shook to her core and worried for the families that she cares for who are already experiencing some of the most stressful moments in their lives if they would lose this support. Literally, their lives depend on it. I visited organizations like Meals on Wheels Atlanta and Open Hand, where I got to do the fun part and deliver the meals to the seniors and show up at their doors because they weren't expecting to see their congresswoman bringing their meals for the week. But here I was because it was important to me to see them and to understand what these cuts really mean in real life. And what we know is that these organizations do so much great work with so little already. They were already under-resourced. But the billionaire bailout rips plates off the tables of children, seniors, and working families right here in the Fighting Fifth. And you might have seen the news reports where the Atlanta Community Food Bank is losing money and trying to figure out what they're gonna do to replace the funds that they're gonna lose from this billionaire bailout. Because that is unacceptable, to send seniors, veterans, children to bed hungry, all in the name of tax cuts for billionaires. Y'all, the Fighting Fifth is the proud home of 18 higher education institutions, including the largest consortium of HBCUs in the country. Y'all heard I'm a Talladega College alum, so I get a little proud when we talk about our HBCUs. Over the 100,000 students attending institutions full-time, 52% of them are Pell Grant recipients. That means that over half of the college students in the community are going to face cuts to the program that provides this life-changing opportunity to them. That's how people get ahead. And yet, we're cutting Pell Grants to give tax cuts to billionaires? The Trump administration is telling our students to dream smaller. It's telling our families to make smaller portions and making our medical debts larger. Why? All for the sake, you guessed it, tax cuts to billionaires. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't really have a problem with billionaires because maybe one day one of us in this room can be a billionaire and y'all can help me out. But that's not where I am. And even if I was, I should be forced to pay my fair share and not take money from the most needy people to give more to the rich. It's just not okay. And y'all, there's one more policy that Trump and his colleagues are going after. Today, I see a lot of seniors in the room. Raise your hand if you receive Social Security benefits. So tune in, y'all, because there's a lot at stake. Today marks 90 years since Social Security became the promise that America keeps to its people. It's a promise, y'all, and we should not go back on our promises. Today, more than 2 million Georgians count on the benefits they earned. This isn't given to you. You have earned this benefit. More than 2 million Georgians count on this benefit that they've earned. Retirees, widows, children, people with disabilities. Y'all, Social Security lifts 22 million people nationwide out of poverty, including 1 million children. But that promise is under attack. President Trump has already fired 12% of the Social Security workforce. Some field offices have lost over half of their staff. And now 5 Georgia cities are set to lose their Social Security offices altogether. 5 Georgia cities. That means longer wait times, more confusion, and fewer people to process your benefits, plain and simple. And let's be clear, these cuts are part of a backdoor plan to privatize Social Security, raise the retirement age, and hand your money over to guess who? Billionaires. And that too is unacceptable. But I'm here to tell you that I will not let this happen without raising the alarm on my watch. I will fight for you every day as your voice in Washington, D.C. I'm fighting to stop these closures and staffing cuts, and I'm a proud co-sponsor of the Social Security 2100 Act, which will extend the solvency of the trust fund, strengthen benefits, and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Democrats want to protect and enhance Social Security, not gut it, because you've earned it. This program isn't a handout. It's a lifeline that you've earned with every paycheck. I remember getting that first paycheck. I didn't know who all those other people were that did not show up to come to work when I was a cashier at Food World, but they were getting money out of my check. And now I realize that this was me putting a down payment on my future because we've all paid into this system. So I'm gonna keep fighting, y'all, because we need to make sure that that lifeline is there for you, your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come. So thank you all for being here tonight, taking the time out of your busy lives to join the public process for better policy. Because y'all, we are in this together. I am just your voice in DC, but we do this work together. So it is important that I hear from you. It is important that you come out to town halls. It is important that you call us at the office and let us know your concerns. It is important that you raise your voice, especially in this moment with so much confusion and chaos in this country. But let me remind you that the chaos and confusion is by design. It is meant to tire us out. It is meant to pit us against each other, but we need to remember that there are people in Washington still fighting for you. But y'all, math is math. And right now, there are not a majority of leaders in Washington that are standing up for the people. So we gotta get more people that are like-minded, more people that are people-minded, people-focused, people-centered in Washington, D.C. But in the meantime, I'm not gonna stop doing the work. I am here to fight for you. I am your voice. So it is important that we take a moment to review the timelines that we've provided, because Republicans, they know how unpopular a lot of these ideas are. They understand that. So they're smart in this process. And we put out where are the timelines, Amber? Oh, I can't see up here, y'all. Can't hear me. So the timelines. Yes, thank you. Oh, no, give me the one with the date. Sure. Because what happens is, you heard a lot about the bill, you got all worked up, people are all like telling you to call your representative. I'm like sitting there at 3:00 in the morning on the House steps doing videos because they're cutting NPR. I'm getting lobbied at home. Carter is like, Mommy, what is going on? Because what do you mean they're gonna cut funding for Circle Round? And so I'm catching it from every direction, and I haven't slept in 48 hours because they think that they're gonna tire us out. But I don't sleep much anyway, so I had a little time. But this is what they're planning to do. So there are a lot of things that you've heard about, and people are gonna say, well, you told us that all of this stuff was gonna happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So did she stand up, Pastor Sutton, in the Lord's house and lie to these people? I didn't, y'all, because they're a little smart and they delayed some of the implementation of these cuts so that you won't feel it until after the midterms. So we got to make sure that we are aware and that we're sharing accurate information. So let's start here. When will you feel the billionaire bailout? July 4th, 2025, this year, changes to SNAP work requirements. So a lot of people might have received notices. That's one of the things that we were in the Rules Committee up fighting, going back and forth, because we wanted to make sure there was this thing in place that if you had a 7-year-old at home, then the work requirement took effect. And I'm like, so that tells me that a lot of people don't have children at home, because I don't know what 7-year-old you leaving at home by themselves, because DTI's gonna come and do a knock on your door because you can't leave them at home. So then they up the age a little, but still children are still on the chopping block, because if you have the children at home, it doesn't exempt you from this work requirement. October 1st, 2025, so this is coming up, ends funding for the SNAP Nutrition Education and Obesity Prevention Program. So if you think about all of the public schools in the city of Atlanta, you might have heard a lot about this, like the summer nutrition meals were cut, funding was cut. If you think about, especially Atlanta public schools, I know at a lot of our APS schools, every student in the school got free lunch. So we didn't have to worry about people, one section of kids who maybe didn't have money, they're standing here to get a peanut butter and jelly brown bag, while the other kids are getting this full lunch, and you shaming babies because they don't have the money to buy lunch, because everybody got free lunch. It was across the board. But we're cutting benefits, y'all, to children who need food assistance to give tax cuts to billionaires. Then let's fast forward to next year, July 1st, 2026. New limits for certain repayment options for federal student loans. And you might be like, I don't know what that means. Well, like, why does that matter? We don't need to get all these student loans. Those people won't go into debt. But let me make it plain for you. How many of you have ever used an attorney in your life? Ever? How many of you, okay, maybe you haven't used an attorney. How many of you have ever been to a doctor in your life? Everybody in here has been to some medical professional in your life. So let me make this plain of what this means. The reduction in the amount of student loans that you can receive over your lifetime means that it's going to limit who can go and seek a professional degree. It's going to cut you off at a certain point. And that point is well before the limits of paying for a medical school or a law school or any professional school education. So that means we're going to have a class of have and have-nots. We've made all of this progress on making sure that we can bring some equity to who is able to seek professional degrees, but starting July 1st, 2026, there's going to be limits on the amount of student loans that you can take, so you might not even be able to finish your degree. I've been getting letters and emails from people who tell me that they're a medical school student right now, and they're trying to figure out what that means for the rest of their education, because they're already above the cutoff point that's going to take effect next year. And y'all, that is unacceptable. October 1st, 2026 removes federal funding for emergency for Medicaid for undocumented people. And y'all, this is a big one, because what that means, it doesn't mean that anyone in this country undocumented isn't gonna still need care. What it means is that our emergency rooms are gonna be overwhelmed with people who are not getting treatment and care for things that could have been prevented. Treatment for things that didn't have to be this way, because they want to round up everybody and send them out. And now they don't even care if you're a U.S. citizen. They'll ask questions later, ship you off and ask questions later, have ICE coming up, talking to babies in schools. And that too, y'all, is unacceptable. July 1st, 2027, end of student loan deferments for economic hardship or unemployment. How many of you have ever found yourself where you fell on hard times and you maybe didn't have a job? If you don't want to raise your hand, I'll raise my hand for you, because that was me. I've been at that point where I needed to file that economic hardship form to defer my student loans because I couldn't pay them. We got some people right now. But girl, let me tell you, mine got forgiven 2 years ago, and I have that screenshot in my phone because no takebacks. But because of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, my student loans were forgiven for my days as a teacher in Fulton County Schools and my days as a public policy employee at a nonprofit, Planned Parenthood, here in the Southeast. So they have been forgiven. Pastor said, and I know they said the Lord forgives you, but these student loans have been forgiven. If they try to come back, I'm gonna send them to the Lord, because I'm not putting those back on my books. So next up, January 1st, 2027. Deadline for most states to implement new Medicaid work requirements. So you know the work requirements, they went into effect July 4th of this year, and then the deadline for the states to implement these work requirements won't happen until January 21st, 2027. But did y'all notice what was not on that board? We have a big election coming up, y'all. We have a big election coming up in November. So these are the things that are not going to go into effect until after the election. So you won't feel this pain until after the midterm elections, and it was by design. January 1st, 2028, fewer drugs eligible for Medicare drug pricing negotiation. That means the drugs that you're taking that have previously been negotiated, the prices are lower and you can maybe have a little more breathing room and afford them better. Yeah, some of that is going to be a thing of the past, but it won't go into effect until January 1st, 2028. October 2028, most states began paying 5 to 15% of SNAP benefit costs. That means that's when those SNAP benefits are really, really going to be felt. Because what we're seeing now is state funds, they already can't afford it, y'all. I mean, we have a state senator here with us, and we're going to recognize our elected officials. And if you can tell me where the state of Georgia is about to find all of this extra money when they stay cutting stuff, I would love to hear it. December 31st, 2028, expiration of temporary no tax on tips, overtime, and auto loan entries, because that would have already went into effect before the midterms, because they want you to feel that, to think that they're doing something to help you. But y'all, you know what was not temporary? The tax cuts to billionaires. Those are in perpetuity, where no tax on tips, which only helps you if you itemize your taxes. So it's kind of a fake assistance anyway. But they're still going to repeal even that in 2028. But the tax cuts to billionaires, they will linger on. So y'all, tax cuts for the people continue to be rolled back, but tax breaks for billionaires continue. No deadline, no sunsetting, nothing. And that is unacceptable. So what I need you to do is I need you to keep your foot on the pedal and keep raising the alarm. Everyone needs to know and needs to understand what they're ripping away and why they are doing it, all for billionaires. I'm proud to be here with you all to answer any questions that you might have as we proceed, because in the fighting fifth, y'all, we fight back, and tonight is a big part of that, because I need to hear from you. And now it is my honor to bring up someone who I'm sure most of you already know, because she will show up at your house with food. She will make sure that you are taken care of if you are sick. She will show up to make sure that your children know that they have someone on the local level fighting for them every day. She'll honor your community leaders down at City Hall. She is a woman who is no stranger to the people. Actually, that is how I met her. Doing the work of the people, going out in the streets, going door to door, talking to the people. Y'all, please join me in welcoming the Councilwoman for District 10, Councilwoman Boon.
Good evening, good evening. I am joined tonight by my mother, Alethea Boon. Will you please stand? Thank you. This is the woman who made me who I am, and I love her. Thank you so much. And a proud alum of Talladega College as well. Thank you, thank you. To Dr. Gregory A. Sutton, First Lady Gail Sutton, the members of Jackson Memorial Baptist Church, to all of these wonderful elected officials that are here with us, if you would please stand at this time. Please stand, all of our elected officials that are here. Let's give them a hand. There is a lot of power in this room. We have our union leaders, our president of AFL-CIO, Sandra Williams, if you would stand. We have Sandra, will you stand? Thank you, Sandra, for fighting for the rights of our workers. We have members of our faith-based community here at Jackson Memorial. Please stand if you are here tonight. If you're a member of our faith-based community, please stand. Reverend Charles Ramsey, Reverend Mobley, thank you all so much for being here tonight. I am honored to stand before you tonight alongside the Honorable Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who works tirelessly for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you for being here. Your time is valuable, and your presence tonight shows just how much you care about our community's future. We are here because decisions made in Washington, D.C. on the federal budget, Medicaid, taxes, infrastructure, and so much more directly impact our everyday lives right here in Atlanta. Some of those developments are positive and deserve to be celebrated. Others require us to push back, speak up, and demand better. Tonight is about hearing directly from you and our Congresswoman, asking the hard questions, making sure she knows exactly how we feel, and that we support her and appreciate all that she has delivered to the citizens of Atlanta on every level. Let's give her a hand. The work of and for the people cannot and does not happen only at City Hall and the U.S. Capitol. Partnerships between local leaders, state officials, and members of Congress are essential. When we speak with one voice, grounded in the needs and experiences of the people we serve, we are stronger, we are heard, and we get results. Congresswoman Williams and I have worked hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder for many years, echoing the voices of the people. Here's what we'll talk about tonight: challenges and opportunities, the federal budget and how it shapes local programs we rely on, Medicaid, what proposed cuts could mean for our seniors, families, and healthcare providers, tax fairness, ensuring hardworking people don't shoulder more than their fair share, infrastructure and housing, making sure investments reach our neighborhoods, small business and workforce development, because prosperity must be shared. We'll face the truth about the challenges ahead, but we'll also recognize our wins and opportunities we can seize together. Again, thank you for being here tonight. Look at this wonderful crowd. We mean business in Atlanta, Georgia. I see our state representative, Sheila Jones, if you would stand. Thank you. Senator Rashawn Kemp, stand. Fulton County Commissioner Dana Barrett. The Honorable Marvin S. Arrington Jr. and the Honorable Michael Julian Bond. State Representative, please stand. Thank you for being here. McQueen, thank you for being here at the Jackson Memorial Baptist Church, and to all of our MPU leaders and those that go out and take the word to their communities. Thank you for all you do. I see so many from Chalet, Peyton Road, I see those from Westport Way and Bakersferry. I see so many, but thank you all so much. And now we will turn it over to the great Congresswoman of the City of Atlanta, the Honorable Nikema Williams.
So y'all, it's not often that you show up in a space with leaders at every level. We have the city level with Councilwoman Boon and Councilman, I didn't see you when you walked in, but welcome, Councilman Boon. But we also have our county level officials and our state level officials. And so I know that we cannot do this in isolation. It takes every level of government working together. That's why Councilwoman Boon and I teamed up. So as we take your questions tonight, I often get phone calls in the congressional office and people will call and Councilman Boon, they want to call me and they want to talk to me about their water bill. And, you know, I can do a lot of things in Congress, but I really can't help them with their water bill. But I never turn people away. My rule in the office is we connect them to the people that can help them. So as we get questions tonight, I'm sure some of them are not going to be federal issues, but you're in luck because we have city leaders, we have county leaders, we have state leaders, and your Congresswoman. So we're going to get y'all some answers tonight, y'all. So I think we are going to start. I know that there were note cards on the seats.
Yes, ma'am.
And people have presented questions.
Yes, ma'am. So what will occur is when you came in, many of you filled out the index cards with your questions. Your name will be called. When your name is called, if you are able, please come up to one of the two microphones. There's one on this side. Marcus will come up and call your name. Marcus is a member of the Congresswoman staff here in the district. Emil will come on this side and come up, read your question, and we'll answer it. Now, there's only sort of kind of one rule, and if you have a follow-up question, staff will stay here as long as we need to be here for any follow-up questions or concerns, but in order to give everyone an opportunity or maximize the opportunity for questions, if you could keep it at the first question, if you got a second one, we will raise our hands from a staff standpoint and assist you after we wrap up here in about an hour, okay? All right, Marcus?
And I know that we are all educated, y'all, and we got a lot of big words that we want to use. We got a lot of paragraphs that we've pre-prepared to bring up to the mic tonight. But if we can keep it to a question so that we can get as many people to the mic to have their issue and concern heard, I would greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Albert Huntley.
Mr. Huntley, you're on deck. Okay.
I want to know what are you all going to do about this clubhouse on Plainville Circle Drive? I've been at it for 4 years trying to get that clubhouse situation straightened out. Ms. Boon, I talked with Ms. Boon, and it's just a situation where they gave the property away and then had to take it back. So I just want to know what they're going to do.
Thank you so much for that question. This is one of those that I'm going to turn over to Councilwoman Boon.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley. Thank you. First, Atlanta Housing Authority recently accepted the property back on last week. I spoke with Terry Lee. We are in the process of converting it over to Parks and Recreation. I spoke with Ms. Stembridge and Ms. Fran White, your neighbors, and they are going to convene a meeting to decide exactly what the community would like to do with that property. If you have noticed, we have been keeping it clean. It is cut, and we will have an update for you very soon. But thank you very much. The City of Atlanta does have ownership of that property again. Thank you, Mr. Huntley.
Y'all, this is what partnership looks like. Next question.
All right, we have Avery Thomas.
Okay, come on up, Mr. Thomas. Grab a mic.
So sorry. All right, Congresswoman Williams, thank you so much for, first of all, hosting this town hall with Council Member Andrea Boon. So knowing that you're in the minority currently in the House, I was hoping you could help explain actionable steps you are taking that are benefiting our fighting 5th District, or at least protecting us from any possible damage the MAGA party is currently trying to put in place.
Thank you so much for that question, because y'all, we have to be real. The math is the math. And we don't have the votes to advance the proactive legislation that is always my North Star. But what that means is it does not stop me from introducing that legislation, because the people need to know that there are still folks in Washington, D.C. that are ready and willing to work and fight for them every day. The night that we were passing the billionaire bailout bill, I flew in early and I had 16 amendments to this bill, 16 amendments. One of them, like simple things that I talked to some of my Republican colleagues and they're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, but I can't vote for you with this one, Nikema. Maybe if we did it as a standalone, because they didn't want to mess up their relationship with the president. They didn't want to mess up their relationship with the speaker. So one of the amendments that I had was currently to qualify for SNAP benefits. You look at your utility bills, you look at your rental rates, you look at all of these things, but a utility that's not included in that, because when this provision was written, it kind of didn't exist. Wi-Fi and internet services, which is essential, and it is absolutely a utility, but it didn't exist when these provisions were written. So I offered an amendment, simple amendment, to just say that when you are looking at eligibility for SNAP benefits, that you required to take in consideration of that additional utility. Not one Republican would even entertain bringing it to the floor for an up or down vote. They wouldn't even make it in order. So I talked to them afterwards. I'm like, you represent rural Georgia. You represent other parts of the state where I know that we can go to places here in Metro Atlanta where we can find readily available hot spots and Wi-Fi for free than you can in your rural community. So why is this not important to you? Oh, it is important to me, Nikema, but I can't do it in this bill. I can't mess up getting on the wrong side of the president. Y'all, this is what we've been faced with right now. We're faced in a country where there's retaliation from the highest levels. And you've heard U.S. senators that are afraid to speak out, afraid to vote for their people because they're afraid of what might happen from the leader of their party, Donald Trump, and who he might send to run against them. And I tell you, it doesn't matter to me about people running against me. I got opponents in this room tonight because I'm going to still do the work of the people regardless of who is on the ballot. Because I know why you sent me to Washington, D.C., and that was to be your voice, not to run scared from Donald Trump or any opponent that may or may not choose to get in the race, because that's the beauty of our democracy. But some of my colleagues have not yet gotten to that point. But I grew up in rural Alabama, y'all, in a home with no indoor plumbing and no running water. I come from strong stock of people who are not afraid to get in a little bit of trouble for the people. As Speaker Pelosi often reminds us, sometimes you have to be willing to give a punch and take a punch for the children. And I'm willing to stand up for the people every single day, regardless of whose target that puts me in. So we got to get more people with a spine. We got to get people more willing to speak out and speak up. I will be honest with you, it does come at a cost. The night of the State of the Union. So the night of the State of the Union, I knew that sitting in that chamber with Donald Trump standing right there in front of the entire body addressing the country, there was going to be at some point that it was going to cross my red line. Probably him walking in the door crossed my red line, but I had to start somewhere, y'all. So I knew at some point that he was going to go so far that I was not going to be able to sit there in good conscience. It was the weekend before Bloody Sunday. The weekend before I was gonna go down and commemorate the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when Congressman John Lewis, who represented this district for 34 years, gave blood on that bridge so that I, as a Black woman in the South, could serve in the United States Congress. And I could not sit there and listen in the entirety of that speech, that the lies that he was telling, the damage that he's causing to this country, the fear that I knew he was stoking to communities that are already marginalized and living in fear. I couldn't sit there any longer, and so I got up and walked out. But that too came at a cost, because I walked out and I kind of helped to organize some of my colleagues, because we knew that everybody wasn't gonna be willing to do that. And I kind of got called into the principal's office. And that's not what we were supposed to be doing. And I'm like, well, I am in a very sacred seat that was held by Congressman John Lewis, and I could not walk into Bloody Sunday weekend knowing that I just sat there and acted like these were normal times, because they are not. These are not normal times. We gotta stop pretending that they are. We gotta raise our voices, because if you think back to those times when Congressman Lewis was out and so many people were in the streets, y'all, it wasn't about the elected officials, it was about the people. So we need more people engaged in this moment, in this movement, because that's how he got in office. Because the people showed up, but they showed up because they didn't see folks on the other side fighting for them. So we gotta get back to fighting for the people, regardless of if that means that the civil rights legislation, we just celebrated the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act just last week. That didn't pass in one Congress. It took years of organizing. And so we can't expect to get out of this with one bill overnight, or one vote, or me showing up to do one. Yeah, I'm in the church now and I'm a woman of God, but I'm not Jesus. And I can't do it overnight. It's gonna take work, but it's gonna take us doing it as a community, because it's gonna take the people making sure that their voices are heard. So that's why I'm so grateful that you raised that and that you're here tonight to make sure that the people understand that it's up to all of us to do this work, y'all. I am just your voice in Washington, D.C., but I can't do it alone.
Mr. Lenny Berman. Mr. Lenny Berman.
And we'll also have Megan Castro. You'll be up next.
When Congress is in session in Washington, have you heard some of the Republican congressmen, either directly or indirectly, the reason why it is so easy for them to hand over the power of the House to this demagogue and convicted felon who has made it clear his intention is to disregard law and decency to enrich himself and the ultra wealthy?
That was a lot, but it's real. And so, have I heard anything from my colleagues about why it is so easy for them to just pretend like they weren't elected in this body? Y'all, we have a separation of powers by design, so that no president, no Congress, no Supreme Court can ever have too much power. But when we have members of Congress who are elected, willing to cede their power to the president, then that's a problem. And that gets us into this moment that we're in right now. So earlier this year, I had an in-person town hall, and the question was, well, people were thinking that I was being all henny-penny, the sky is falling, when we were like, well, he's not willing to follow the law and the Constitution. So then what? And folks were like, oh no, well, the law says this and this isn't gonna happen. And I'm like, y'all, let me remind you, I grew up in rural Alabama. I've seen these things happen before. My great aunt, Arthurine Lucy, integrated the University of Alabama when the state of Alabama would not follow the Constitution, did not care what the law said, did not care what the court said. They still wouldn't let Black people into that school. But she went anyway and pushed back against the law, and the people rose up behind her, and that is how we eventually integrated the schools in Alabama. Well, that and a little help from the courts and Thurgood Marshall being her attorney, but that's a whole history lesson that will happen another day. But what I know is that my colleagues, they're not willing to stand up to the president, and that is why. They're afraid of primary elections. They are so afraid of primary elections that because anything that they do to go against him, I watched this with this bill, where we had Republicans who knew it would be bad for their districts, who knew it would be bad for their constituents. I have a Republican colleague in California. He has more people in nursing homes than any other congressional district in the country. And he's a Republican. And he knew the cuts that this would mean to the people that he represents. And he said, well, I can't vote for this. I'm not going to vote for it. And guess what? Here we go. And so they talk a good game on social media to make the people at home feel like they're standing up for them, but they're not going to address their constituents in a town hall. They don't want to hear from the people because they know that their policies are not popular. They know that the things that they're voting for that are inflicting pain on the people that they represent are not popular. But this is what the president has told them to do, and they get in line and they do it anyway because they're so afraid of losing their elections. It is absolutely our democracy on the line, and that is not being extreme and just saying things to be fear-mongering, as is often said that I'm doing. This is real, y'all. We're seeing it in real times. We just had a president. So a few weeks ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman from here in Georgia, she announced that she was introducing legislation to call for a new census that would only count citizens, U.S. citizens. And people were like, oh, it doesn't matter. We've already done a census. It's not going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. But guess what? Last week, Donald Trump said, I'm calling for a new census where only U.S. citizens are counted. When people show you who they are, believe them. She told us what was going to happen. We laid out what was going to happen in Project 2025. It was all laid out before us. I went and raised it with everybody that I could so that we knew who was on the ballot, what our options and our choices were, and people didn't believe that they would go that far. But here we are, and they have gone that far and then some.
It's just a way to handle it.
So the redistricting piece, which we have not touched on, and I don't know if there's questions on that, but I'll touch on it before we move on. So I know you've heard a lot about what is happening in Texas and the redistricting. So we have a president who literally picked up the phone, called over to Texas, said, hey, Governor Abbott, this is what I need you to do. My policies aren't popular. We're going to lose the midterms and Democrats are going to be back in charge. Can't have that. So what are we going to do about that? I need you to change the lines. I need you to take these people who have already elected representatives that are supposed to serve that are supposed to have these lines for the next 10 years so that the people choose who represent them, not Donald Trump choosing who he wants to be sent to Congress. But he called them and said, I need 5 seats. I need you to change the lines and give me 5 Republican seats. And they said, okay, how fast can I do it? So they called a special session and called the Texas General Assembly back in. But we had some people willing to stand up for what they know is fair, just, and right. And they left the state. And then you would have thought they were runaway slaves, y'all. He said, I'm gonna put a bounty on you. I'm gonna call the FBI. I'm gonna put this person after you. We're gonna make sure that we find you. We're gonna send you to jail. He can't do none of that. But it didn't stop him from saying he was gonna do it. He thought it was gonna make them come back immediately and sit there and sit on their hands and act like they didn't have any way to try and push back. But that's what it's about, using every tool in our toolbook to push back against this administration. It might not always look like stopping the legislation. It might look like making sure that we raise the alarm and stay up all night and have people down in the Congress and introduce amendments so that you can see who is fighting against you. Because it looks different in every conversation. And so we have to learn to define our wins. We have to learn that we got to stand up for those people who are also running, because it's not just Texas. Now I'm hearing that down in Florida, DeSantis was like, well, hold my water, because we got a couple of seats that Mom might be able to help you with too, trying to gain courage from Donald Trump. And then we have other Republican states. Over in Missouri, the former mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, current Congressman, Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver, he represents a district that is not a majority black district, so it's not protected under the Voting Rights Act. And so what are they doing in Missouri? They're trying to change the lines in Missouri to get rid of Congressman Cleaver's district.
It was right with the, I mean, it was wrong with the Democrats in Texas, but they left early.
Not vote on the Epstein files.
So he said it was right for the Democrats in Texas to lead, but these Democrats in Congress that left early, so we didn't have to vote on the Epstein files, and I'm gonna have to follow my own rules so that we can get some more people. Yeah. But what happened was, so traditionally Congress has an August district work period. So just Monday, I was with the Atlanta Housing Authority doing an affordable housing tour across the city. Tuesday, wait, what's today? Today's Wednesday or Thursday? Today's Thursday. Okay, so today I was down in Clayton County at Clayton State University, their new cybersecurity lab. Shout out to Clayton County up here. Last week, I was down in Riverdale and Morrow at National Night Out with the police, because it's about bringing the community together. Today, I also went over to South Atlanta, where we're working to get veterans in housing. So the district work period is to get in the community so that you can bring the information back. That's why members of Congress are holding town halls, because the entire month of August, we don't have votes in DC. But it's supposed to just be August, y'all. Not supposed to be half of July. But what happened was, you might have heard about these Epstein files. But we don't know what's in them because they won't release them. And they won't release them because they don't want you to know what they already know is in them or who is in them. Yeah. And so they cancel votes in Congress and sent us home early in July until September 2nd because they don't want to vote on releasing these files. And this is one of those rare moments when both Democrats and Republicans, there are some Republicans that have teamed up with Democrats and saying, release the files, what you got to hide? You protecting pedophiles?
He would have released them day one.
If he were not guilty, he would release them on day one. Thank you so much for being here and voicing your concerns tonight.
All right, so Congresswoman, we've actually got a handful of questions addressing this, so I'll go ahead and ask it. This is about the National Guard being deployed in DC and some fears about it being trickling down to other large cities like ours. Could you address some of those constituent concerns about that?
Absolutely. The National Guard being deployed in Washington, D.C. If you have not seen what has happened and piped up over the last few days, where the President of the United States, well, let's give a little short history lesson on Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has a population of U.S. citizens larger than some states in this country. They are not a state. They do not have a voting member of the United States House of Representatives. They do not have a voting member of the United States Senate. But some states with a population smaller than Washington, D.C., they get 2 senators. They get representatives, but not Washington, D.C. So what our president has decided to do is he said crime is high in Washington, D.C. He said crime is high, and so therefore he is going to federalize the National Guard to come in. I received messages all night from people. I saw lots of things on social media where people were leaving like a popular area with hangout spots in DC where there are checkpoints with federalized police, checkpoints to invoke fear, to stoke fear in communities. And it is no different than what we saw when he deployed and federalized the Guard to go out to California. where Mayor Karen Bass, my former colleague, leads the city of Los Angeles as if they didn't have their own police force, as if they were not policing their own communities, to exaggerate the situation and make it seem worse than what it was. So I say that when people show you who they are, believe them, because it was LA, it's Washington, DC. Y'all, it could be Atlanta. And we cannot sit back and pretend as if we're just exempt from this conversation because that's out in California or that's up in DC. We gotta pay attention and we gotta be ready to push back at every opportunity. And so that is why I'm so glad that we have leaders at every level represented with us here tonight, because it is important that we work together in all of these instances. I was on an emergency call with the Congressional Black Caucus, and they brought in the mayor of Washington, D.C. This was Sunday night, I think. Was it Sunday? My days are blurring. I think it was Sunday night. But she was talking about the morale that it's causing in her police force. So for a party that say they back the blue and they support our local police, they sure don't act like it. Not when they're pardoning people who attacked the police on January 6th. Not when they are cutting benefits for people who have served our country. They have to stand up for people who are serving our communities at every opportunity, not just when it benefits them. But that's what we're seeing. They are being used as a pawn in his playbook.
Reverend Mans. Okay.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Megan Castro. I am the proud aunt to my niece who is half Palestinian, and I would like to start my question with a quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, The Message. Israel had advanced beyond the Jim Crow South and segregated not just the pools and the fountains, but the water itself. AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, is one of the largest donors to your campaign. How do you reconcile taking money from an apartheid government committing genocide while representing a district that should be the leader in protecting people's civil and human rights?
Thank you so much for that question, Megan. Well, first, I want to make sure that we're being factual. We're going to tell the truth tonight because AIPAC is an organization and they only can give up to the maximum campaign contribution limit as any political action committee. So they're not actually the largest contributor to my campaign because they can't give any more than any other political action committee can give. And wait, let me finish. I'll let you finish. And so they can't give more than any other political action committee. Members, constituents, U.S. citizens who support the organization, they can absolutely pool their money and support candidates of their choice. And so it is not actually factual. I opened up with naming that I have led my Congressional Black Caucus colleagues to demand that we are addressing the crisis, the humanitarian crisis that is happening, because no civilian should be put in harm because of the conflict that is happening, the war that is happening. Every day, I see what is happening, and we make sure. Ma'am, we'll be happy to answer your question. We'll be happy to answer your questions just as we're going to answer everybody else's questions tonight, but we're not going to interrupt. Ms. Castro has the floor and I'm answering her question right now.
I want my voice heard tonight.
Y'all, this is a conversation that I am willing to hear from everybody on issues that matter to them most. And I understand your pain. I do. I understand. I have a young child. My Carter Cakes is here with me tonight. He's probably on his phone playing video games. But I could not imagine seeing him in the conditions that I'm witnessing the children that are living in Gaza. And so I understand your pain. I understand, which is why I am always centering the civilian population in Gaza, because they should not be caught up in this conflict between Hamas and Israel. We should name that this is between Hamas and Israel, not the people of Palestine, not the people of Israel. This is a conflict between.
Now, ma'am,
Order.
ma'am.
Excuse me.
You're in the Lord's
ma'am.
house.
Ma'am.
And I told you from the beginning,
Ma'am.
you're gonna have to be respectful.
Ma'am.
Or you're gonna have to leave. You're gonna have to leave. You're gonna have to leave.
Okay. We're gonna have to, point of order. Point of order, ma'am. Ma'am, point of order. Point of order, ma'am. We wanna be respectful.
Amen.
We want to be respectful of everyone. But we have citizens
Amen.
that normally
God
would
bless.
not come out at this time in the evening because they are concerned about their future. They are concerned about their communities. We will not, and this pastor of this church was so kind to open the doors. We have members from across this city, the elderly, are here. We will not disrupt this very important opportunity, ma'am. We cannot do it here.
Amen.
The congresswoman came because of the invitation to bring, see, ma'am, we cannot, Pastor.
That includes you.
We're gonna, ma'am.
Deputy.
Ma'am, we don't want to do it. But we have a hard stop.
That's it.
You've got to respect this community. Ma'am, you've got to respect this community. You've got to respect this today. We have folks that are concerned about their future.
Disrupted.
And this is serious business for the people that live in Northwest, Southwest, Southeast Atlanta. Ma'am, ma'am, we're not gonna have a selfish spirit. Ma'am, Pastor,
Okay,
we
I've sent the
cannot have
deputy
a
over
selfish
there.
spirit.
You're gonna
Ma'am,
have to leave.
we cannot. We have
You're
a
disordered.
hard stop.
You're
And
disordered.
we have questions from our citizens from the
She's gonna be
Adamsville,
respectful.
Collier Heights community that have been waiting to get the answers.
Don't take them out. They're gonna have to be respectful.
Just be respectful.
Thank
We
you.
will not allow this town
you,
hall
Deacon.
meeting to be disrupted. This is not personal. This is not personal. We've gotta answer the questions for the people that have gathered here tonight. Proceed, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Boon, and we will move on, and we're going to continue to answer the questions of the people who have come out tonight. And again, I started this by saying that includes people who agree with me and don't disagree with me, but we will be respectful, y'all, and allow everyone's question to be heard. Who's the next constituent?
Fran White. Fran White.
Fran White. She asked her question, I answered. Thank you so much, Ms. Castro, for asking your question.
Okay, now you need mine first.
Is Ms. White here? Right here. Thank you, Ms. White. We're bringing a mic to you.
All this dead, y'all don't do nothing. I can't wait. They put me out.
My question is, for many years, I was in Congressional District number 5. For some reason, now I am in Congressional District number 6. Can you explain this to us? I know the reason, but there are some here who may not know the reason why we are no longer in Congressional District number 5. I miss you. I've been there for years, but it needs to be explained to those who may not understand why we are no longer Congressional District number 5. We are now number 6.
Thank you. So we just had a conversation around redistricting, y'all. My first 3 years in Congress, I had 3 different districts that I represented because the lines kept changing. But they weren't so egregious that when y'all were drawing these lines down at the state capitol, that it raised to the level of what Texas Republicans were doing and caused the Texas Democrats to flee. So what happened here in Georgia is some good people in this state brought a lawsuit against the state of Georgia and said, y'all got rid of, so in the 2020 election cycle, we had congressional district down in Columbus, Albany area, represented by Sanford Bishop. We had the 4th Congressional District represented by Hank Johnson, the 5th Congressional District represented by myself. We had the 6th Congressional District represented by Lucy McBath, and the 7th Congressional District represented by Carolyn Bordeaux. So we had 5 Democratic seats. 5 Democratic seats in a state that just voted 50-50 in a U.S. Senate election. Out of 14 seats, we only had 5, so it probably should have looked more like, and David Scott. So we had 6, correction. 6, David Scott in Congressional District 13. So 6 out of 14, which was not equally balanced. And so there was a lawsuit brought that said that Black voters were being disenfranchised from using their collective power to pick leaders of their choice. The lawsuit was successful. And so while the lawsuit was successful in states like Alabama, who brought a similar lawsuit, they picked up another congressional seat with a Black representative, Representative Shamari Figures from down in Mobile, because Alabama now has 2 Black members of Congress. Same thing happened in Louisiana. Their lawsuit resulted in additional Black congressional seat with majority Black electorate, and that got us Congressman Cleo Fields from Baton Rouge. Well, in Georgia, what they decided to do was they met the letter of the law, but not quite the spirit. What they said that they were going to do, well, let's make District 5 a majority Black congressional district. Because, surprise, you probably didn't know this, but prior to last year, the 5th Congressional District of Georgia was not majority Black. You would have thought it was, because I represented the whole city of Atlanta, y'all. The whole city, and that includes you in District 10 and some people in Southwest Atlanta that were cut out of the 5th District. But people thought it was majority Black because for so many years, we had Ambassador Andrew Young representing this district. We had Congressman John Lewis, and then you just elected the first Black woman to represent this district. So you probably felt like you were in a majority Black congressional district, but it wasn't. So what they did was they're like, oh, let's take away from the 7th Congressional District up in the Gwinnett area, which was a coalition district where minority communities, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, everybody in between, the United Nations, y'all, everybody came together and voted for a congressperson of their choice. And there was a Democrat elected, but it was one of those toss-up seats that we had to fight for. And I'm not willing to give up on a good fight, so let's do it. But they decided, let's pack more Black people into the 5th District to say that, oh, we'll give you another Black district, but y'all, guess what? I was born Black, so I was already a Black member of Congress. But the district was just under 50%. So they added about 3% of people. So I moved further down into Clayton County, got my Clayton County people over here. So starting this year on January 3rd, I picked up the city of Riverdale, the city of Morrow, which I didn't have before. And so that was their way of adding more people into the district to make this the extra majority Black seat, to say that they are now following the Voting Rights Act and they gave us an additional Black congressional district. So they followed the letter of the law, but not the spirit, because the people of this district have always come together and for my entire lifetime sent a Black member of Congress to Washington, D.C. And I was like, well, why are they doing this? Even when redistricting, people were like trying to pick and choose who they wanted to represent. And I'm like, y'all, it's okay. You can put white people in my district because I want to represent everybody. And it turns out white people will vote for me because people vote for folks who are representing them in good public policy. But that is what stripped the west side of Atlanta, some people in District 10, some people in District 11. My son goes to school right down on Fairburn Road in Atlanta Public School, and literally his school and our neighborhood is in my district, but the children who sit in his classroom every day, who live right across the street from the school, they were drawn into the 6th district. So literally across the street from the school is not in the district, but the school is. So that is now back in court. So you might be coming back to the Fighting Fifth, and I will welcome you with open arms because the lines are back in court. The Republicans are saying that they want to bring the old lines back, which didn't really benefit us in getting more representation in Congress. So we will see what happens, because there is also conversation, and I don't know if our state leaders have heard anything about this, that Georgia might be on that list where they're looking to do some mid-decade redistricting yet again. So what I do know is that whether you live on this side of the street or that side of the street, if you need help, call my office, because we're always going to stand up for the people. So have no fear. You're stuck with me. Who's the next question? Drew Andrews, Clayton County, come on up.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm your neighbor from Clayton County. I wrote that question because I didn't know so many people was gonna show up. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna yield and let some of my neighbors here ask the question, and I know how to get hold of it.
Yes, you do, and you have no problem shooting me that text message to let me know when you're happy and let me know when you're not. But that's what a representative democracy is all about.
All right, the next question will be from Wanda Herding.
Okay, thank you for coming out. I will ask this question. With all of the changes going on with Medicaid and being a caregiver of a mother who was a retired teacher, 80+ years old, she's very nervous about how this affects her. So could you kind of elaborate a little bit some more on how the seniors might be affected or impacted by the changes?
So that is the #1 question that I get. How will seniors actually be impacted? And so what happens when policy is passed, y'all, is that the president signs it into law, but then we have federal agencies. We have agencies that have to write the regulations on what that means in practice. And so because of the delayed implementation of a lot of this, they are still trying to figure out exactly what that looks like and exactly what the impact will be. So we are continuing to have these community conversations, and I will continue to bring information back to you as these cuts go into effect, as some of the regulations that the agencies are writing go into effect, because what we know right now is we passed a budget framework. We passed a framework saying how much money could be allocated. And then there were some provisions in there that said how much down the road states were gonna have to kick in. That impacted a lot of states who had expanded Medicaid, but we had not expanded Medicaid in Georgia. But then it also impacted the payment that hospitals receive. So that is what we're gonna feel the impact on first, is we're gonna feel the payments that hospitals are receiving. We had a hospital week across the country where members of Congress went into communities, toured hospitals to talk about the impacts that it would have on the hospitals. The Republican supermajority in Louisiana wrote a letter begging for these cuts to not go through because they're afraid of the closures of rural hospitals. I went and toured hospitals here in the district, and while hospitals, they never want to get on the wrong side of the governor or the state leadership, and they don't want to get on the wrong side of their politics locally, and they didn't want to come out. But I will tell you, I won't call their names and call them out for not being willing to stand up, but I had those meetings in Washington, D.C. And so our hospitals here are afraid as well. They're afraid of, while it might not be the immediate cuts to the hospitals here in Metro Atlanta, what happens in those rural hospitals, if they close with losing cuts, then those people are still gonna need care. And they're gonna come here. You're exactly right. And so that's gonna impact all of us. And that's gonna raise costs because these are people who are not gonna have coverage, and it's gonna raise costs, and it's gonna cost even more cuts to Medicaid trying to stretch to fill in gaps that have been removed from these hospitals that are not going to be receiving the funding. States are going to be asked to kick in funding for hospitals for their Medicaid repayments. And states right now, especially with the economy looking the way that it is and the outcomes that are projected, states aren't going to have the money to make this. I know that y'all just sent people $500 and said that we're going to give some rebates, but the money ain't flowing like that. And so when people don't work and wages are down, that means less tax money or less repayment. So it is all interconnected. And as these regulations are written on the exact impact, we will make sure that we are sending out postcards to the people that will be impacted. And you will probably start receiving things around recertification for your mom or recertification for people who are receiving Medicaid. Make sure that you are paying attention to that. Make sure that you're following up by the deadline so that they don't have any excuse to kick you off any sooner than any of these cuts go into effect. Because a lot of people are counting on that. So there are certification deadlines that might be looming. So make sure that you're paying attention to those postcards that you receive. And we'll continue to send out information too. And then I think what we're gonna do for our next town hall, we'll do a telephone town hall specifically just on Medicaid and the cuts, and bring in someone from Medicaid to talk about what the options are for the regulations that are gonna go into place. Thank you.
Question, Ms. Jan Meadows, followed by Ms. Henrietta Antonine and Ms. Chris Lloyd of the Peyton Chalet.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Congresswoman Williams, Boon, Arrington, Boon.
We got the whole crew out tonight.
And I'm proud of that. But one of the things I think I want to ask this question. We don't have time. We've already are experiencing 8 months of this threat and destruction to the democracy. I have a suggestion, a recommendation.
Yes, ma'am.
All of us in here, we're citizens, and he's taking away our rights. Why can't we, all across the country, do a class action lawsuit?
Yes.
Sue him.
Yes.
He's suing us.
Yes.
And I think it would go all over the country. I mean, he uses the courts. Why can't we use the courts and file a class action lawsuit saying this man is threatening? I mean, I think all of us would agree in here right now. We would sign it. And Congressman Williams, Boon, I suggest that we start it and have it go all across the country.
Thank you, Ms. Meadows. So I am not an attorney, but what I do know over the past 8 months is he really does not care what the courts say. But that should not stop us. She's saying he uses the courts, so we should use them. Commissioner Arrington, I know you are an attorney in the room, so I'm gonna bring you up. Come on up, come on up, come on up, come on up. I get to write the laws, but we have an attorney who gets to defend them and tell us help us to understand them in practice. So I'm gonna let you take this question.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman Williams. Glad to be here with you all tonight, Marvin Arrington Jr. I think it's actually a great idea. One of the things I learned, as a lawyer, you can sue anyone, right? And
That's
so. Absolutely, he can be sued. Now, the question is whether we will win and whether we'll be victorious. But sometimes it doesn't matter because like he's doing, he's just punting it down the road, right? And so, it may be a very great idea, but we have to get some more legal minds. I was on with Ben Crump earlier today, so the Black Attorney General. So we're gonna have to get him and get some more minds together. We need more brains, but I love the idea and I love the concept, and we need to do anything and everything we can.
Ms. Meadows, because what that means is we have to show up and fight back. We have to stop pretending like these are normal times. We have to stop pretending like any of this is normal and make sure that people understand that we understand what is happening and we're willing to fight back against it.
Ms. Henrietta Antonine, Peyton Road.
Thank you, and I'm so happy to see so many people here tonight. I just want to say I ditto everything Jan Meadows just said. All of my life, I have worked in this community to try to help make things better and better our community. Never have I felt homeless and helpless. There's nothing that I can do. We're looking at a man as a 34 felon that's running the country, a thug, and has the audacity to say he's going to Texas to get criminals. And who is a bigger criminal than him? I want to know from a congressman, what are you all saying that you think the solution is? I agree with Ms. Meadows. All across the country, we all have support. We ought to sue his, I don't want to call him that, you know.
Win the church, Ms. Henrietta.
But I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels like this. I think this room is crowded with people who have the same feeling than I do. We have tried to do what is right. We were taught to have high morals. We looked at the insurrection in January 6th. We looked at a man who had criminals tearing down the damn Capitol and put those same people in office to help run this country. It is unbelievable that we can sit up and take this. But I want to know, as a congressman, what have you all come together to say that we can do? Because I'm not telling you that I'm pleased or unhappy. Well, I might just tell the truth. I am unhappy. I'm unhappy with the fact that I don't hear a solution. Everybody's saying, what can we do? The Supreme Court is on their side. He's disrespecting the judges. He's disrespecting the law. He's disrespecting democracy. He's disrespecting citizens. Everything. But you all are our leaders. What can you tell us to do other than we don't know what to do? They're not voting. What else is it to do? I agree with Ms. Meadows. Why can't we organize throughout the whole damn country? We had 7 million people voting against him. How come them 7 million people can't come out and work against him today?
Thank you, Ms. Henrietta. You are exactly right. And y'all, Ms. Henrietta and Ms. Meadows, they have a history of fighting in this community like you've heard. And so they understand that it's about the people, Ms. Henrietta, because one person in Congress, he'll ignore a congressional vote. He'll override a congressional vote. But when we come together, he cannot ignore the masses. So we've seen people rising up in cities across the country. What happened in LA was the people rose up. The people rose up and the leaders got in sync because they knew what the people were demanding at that moment. So that is why so many people turned out here tonight, because they understand the threats that we're under, and we have to do this together. So we are at a moment in time. We have about 10 minutes left in here. Y'all, we are at a moment in this country where we're in a constitutional crisis. It does not matter what the Constitution says, because he doesn't care. But you know who can force this country to care? The people. The people in this room. Ms. Henrietta, when you think back to everything that happened during the Civil Rights Movement, it wasn't the leaders in Washington. They got on board after the fact. They got on board because they could no longer ignore the will of the people, because there were so many people engaged in that moment. And so we've got to come together. We have to realize that we can't pit each other against each other, and we have to stay focused on the work that we have at play, and we have to stay focused on who is restricting these cuts, because at one hand, we have folks that are ready to work with them. We have folks who are saying, well, but what about this and what about that, and I'm afraid about this and I'm afraid about that, and it's time out for being scared, y'all. It is time out for that, because people's lives depend on this. Our Constitution, our democracy, and our country depends on us raising our voices and not sitting back any longer to say or pretend that we have the luxury to just not even wait until the next election cycle, which is right around the corner. We've got work to do, y'all, but we can do it together. It starts with raising your voices in these conversations. We got to organize. We got to continue to come together. I know that Pastor Ross, is he still back there? Pastor Ross and I have had a conversation around a community mass meeting. So I've been working with a group of local pastors so that we can have a broader conversation to bring more people out, and churches bringing their people together. People who don't belong to churches, everybody is welcome in this movement, because y'all, we got to show the power within the people. Because right now, what he's looking at is leadership in Washington, D.C. who is still trying to play by these rules. Still trying to play by these rules, and they don't care what the rules are. They don't care what the decorum is in Congress. They don't care what any of this is. They just want to get their way. They're going to continue to forge through until people continue to stand up and say no more. And this is our time. I ask people all the time, if you ever wonder, people will say, you always talk about Congressman John Lewis and the civil rights movement, and that was way a long time ago, and it doesn't really, that doesn't have anything to do with me. But y'all, if you ever wonder what you would have done during the civil rights movement, this is our civil rights movement, y'all, and it's your time to find out. It is your time to find out. So thank you so much for being here, y'all. We are short on time. I promise you this will not be the last conversation. I am willing to meet people where they are. I have these conversations in community centers. We play bingo and we talk about Social Security and Medicaid cuts. I have these conversations at cigar bars. We get a drink. And we talk about how tariffs are impacting the prices that you pay when you just want to go and get a drink after a long weekend of work. And we have these conversations in sanctuaries like this, where people like Reverend Sutton, our leaders, are opening up their doors so that we can bring the community together. We have these conversations at labor halls because workers' rights are under attack. Y'all, we will continue to have these conversations so that I can bring accurate information to you, because there is so much disinformation out there. Again, every voice is welcome in this. That is the beauty of this democracy. I will listen to everyone. That doesn't mean that we're always going to agree, but it does mean that I am willing to listen and find ways that we can work together, because it's always about the people for me.